asking this, so it'll be the last time. Where is the rebel base?
Do you remember the first time that blue blade hummed alive? The theater didn't just go quiet. It tilted forward. Yellow letters climbed into infinity, and a low electric thrum whispered, this wasn't just a movie, it was a doorway. Tonight we return to 1977, peeling back 20 weird, messy truths behind a scrappy miracle. From handmade effects to storms, secrets, and stubborn faith, the legend gets human. Ready to step through? Let's pry open the hatch and look closer together. Fact 1. The crawl that wasn't digital at all. The legendary opening crawl wasn't made by any computer. Those golden words were actually printed on a massive blackboard, stretching several feet long. A camera was set at an angle above it, slowly moving forward frame by frame to create the illusion of text vanishing into space. Every inch of motion had to be perfect. Even a single speck of dust or a vibration meant starting the whole process over. It took hours just to capture a few seconds of footage, but the result was pure cinematic magic. There were no shortcuts, no digital effects, just light, patience, and precision. The crawl you've seen 1,000 times wasn't born from technology. It was handcrafted, one careful movement at a time. But that was only the first illusion. Fact 2. Darth Vader. 4 people, 1 nightmare. Darth Vader wasn't a single man. He was a creation stitched together from 4 different people. His towering body belonged to David Prowse, a British bodybuilder whose slow, heavy movements gave Vader his brutal presence. But when it came time to duel, a faster fighter stepped in. Bob Anderson, a fencing master from the British Olympic team. The terrifying voice came from James Earl Jones, recorded in a dark studio, his deep tone echoing like thunder across galaxies. And when the mask finally came off, the broken, dying face beneath it was Sebastian Shaw's 4 people, 4 souls. Together, they built one of cinema's greatest monsters, a walking symbol of power, pain, and redemption. Vader wasn't just played. He was engineered, piece by piece, breath by breath. Fact 3. The $7,000 voice that shook the galaxy. James Earl Jones gave Darth Vader his soul for a small paycheck. For the 1977 film, he recorded the lines quickly. No costume, no saber, a microphone, a script, and an earthquake of a voice. The fee, about $7,000. No points on the back end, no flashy contract, just workmanlike precision that rewired pop culture. He even asked to go uncredited at first, worried his role might distract from the film. Yet his delivery, measured, cold, ceremonial, turned a masked figure into myth. You can feel the weight in every pause, the restrained fury in every syllable. It's the sound that made kids whisper and parents lean forward. Small check, giant echo. And it proved something timeless. Sometimes the most unforgettable performance happens off camera, in the dark, between breath and silence. Fact 4. The stormtrooper's head bump that became legend. The galaxy's most accidental laugh. A stormtrooper strides into the control room, forgets to duck, and clunks his helmet on the door frame. Blink and you miss it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Instead of hiding the mistake, the team left it in, an honest smudge on a polished empire. Later, home releases even winked at fans with a louder thud. It works because it punctures the myth for a split second. Under the armor are people, rushing, sweating, trying to hit their marks. That human slip makes the scene feel real. It's the tiny blooper that launched 1,000 rewinds and turned casual viewers into frame-by-frame detectives. And yet, that wasn't the only moment where chaos slipped through the cracks. Fact 5. The crash that changed. Luke Skywalker. January 1977, a few months before the premiere, Mark Hamill's sports car left the highway and rolled. He broke his nose and cheekbones, needed reconstructive surgery, and suddenly the face of hope had changed. A New Hope still had pickup shots to finish, so doubles handled tight angles and inserts while Hamill healed. Rather than pretend nothing happened, the team folded reality into the myth the next time out. The Empire Strikes Back opens with a rough encounter on Hoth, giving Luke on-screen scars that made sense. Look closely and you'll spot different edits and compositions around Luke near the end of ANH and a subtly altered profile in ESB. The legend didn't crack, it adapted, and the next twist came came from a studio suit with a gut feel bet. Fact 6. The executive who saved Star Wars. Hollywood kept saying no. Too strange, too risky, too expensive for a kid's space opera. George Lucas walked into meeting after meeting with the Star Wars and left with the same answer: pass. Then he met Alan Ladd Jr. at 20th Century Fox. Ladd didn't fully understand the script, but he believed the storyteller. He approved a modest budget, shielded Lucas from studio interference, and, crucially, let him keep merchandising and sequel rights others thought were worthless. That single vote of faith turned a stack of rejections into ignition. Without Laddie, there's no Crawl, no Falcon, no Summer of '77. Sometimes the most important special effect is a quiet yes from the right person. And speaking of labels, the film you think you know by name didn't have that name yet. Fact 7. When Star Wars didn't have a subtitle. In 1977, audiences didn't buy tickets to Episode 4, A New Hope. They bought tickets to plain, punchy Star Wars. The crawl carried no episode number, no subtitle, just the promise of a rebellion and a farm kid staring at twin suns. The Episode 4 tag arrived later in the 1981 re-release, when Lucas began framing the saga as a middle chapter of a much bigger myth. Suddenly, the movie you loved became part 4 of a 9-part tapestry, retrofitting destiny into the opening seconds. It sounds minor, but that tiny change reshaped how fans talked, theorized, and collected. It told you the galaxy already had a past and a future barreling toward you. And right after the labeling settled, the desert itself tried to rewrite the chute with storms. Fact 8. The desert that tried to drown Tatooine. Tunisia didn't greet the crew with blazing suns. It opened with a freak deluge. Days of desert prep turned to soup. Dunes slumped, footprints became ponds, and moisture crept into cameras. Miniatures warped, costumes caked in mud, and gusts shoved tents sideways as generators sputtered. Locals said they hadn't seen rain like this in decades. The fix was pure grit. Hair dryers on props, towels stuffed in lens ports, tarps over sand, and a rebuild the instant clouds split. Within days, the sky snapped back to brutal blue, and Luke's horizon finally shimmered. On screen, Tatooine looks timeless. Off-screen, boots squished through a supposed drought. From a flood, they minted a desert and kept rolling anyway. Next, the movie's most iconic sound was born from two very ordinary machines. Fact 9. The lightsaber's hum born from machines. The lightsaber's voice wasn't software. Sound designer Ben Burt stitched it together from everyday tech. The steady purr of a film projector motor and the buzzing interference picked up from a TV set. Then he performed the blade by moving a live microphone past a speaker, creating Doppler swooshes that felt physical, like air splitting. Different mic speeds gave you bright, high slices or heavy, menacing arcs. Layer a hum, add a swipe, and suddenly a flashlight becomes a ritual weapon. It's tactile because it began as vibration in a room, not digits on a timeline. That's why kids could copy it with a mouth and a stick. The Force wasn't digital, it was mechanical imagination, and the same tinkerer's mindset shaped an alien language you've definitely heard. Fact 10. The real language behind the Jawas. That squeaky, rapid-fire Jawa chatter wasn't random gibberish. Ben Burt searched for a real rhythm a human ear would accept, landed on recordings of Zulu, and then sped, chopped, and pitch-shifted them into Jawaiese. The result feels playful but coherent, with repeated syllables and musical cadence that make your brain think, yep, that's a language, because it is, just transformed. It's the same trick that makes creature sounds believable. Start with reality, then bend it until it feels alien yet familiar. That's why Utini sticks in your head like a chorus hook. Even background voices got intention, building a world where scrap sellers and droids have their own sonic identities. And while voices were remixed in the booth, one golden droid was suffering inside a very real, very rigid suit. Fact 11. C-3PO's golden prison. C-3PO looked elegant on screen. Inside, it was a gilded trap. Anthony Daniels was bolted into rigid fiberglass with almost no give. He saw the world through a thin slit, couldn't sit, and barely turned his neck. In Tunisia, the heat baked the metal finish. Sweat pooled, foam padding slipped, and every step rubbed skin raw. If a screw snagged, he had to stand there, locked upright, until crew freed him. The feet caught on rocks, the hands pinched, and sudden panic sometimes hit when the faceplate sealed. Yet that stiffness made 3PO believable. The fussiness, the careful pivots, the anxious flutters were half performance, half survival. It's comedy built from discomfort. And while Daniels suffered in real armor, half the galaxy around him wasn't even there. It was painted glass. Fact 12. When half the galaxy was painted glass, half the locations in 1977 were paintings, literal oil on glass. Artists set giant panes in front of the camera and brushed in impossible spaces, endless Death Star bays, miles of corridors, whole skylines like Mos Eisley at dawn. Live action was shot through a clear portion of the glass, or combined later on an optical printer, so actors seemed to walk right into artwork. The trick depended on ruthless alignment. A few millimeters off, and walls floated or horizons breathed. Dust, reflections, and lens flares were natural enemies. Precision and patience were the shield. That's why the frames feel grand, yet strangely tangible. The grain of film meets the grain of paint. A galaxy built by hand, then fused to reality. And to move through it, they needed a brand new camera robot. Fact 13. The robot camera that made ships fly. Before Star Wars, cameras couldn't fly like ships. To film dogfights across miniatures, effects wizard John Dykstra and his ILM crew built a new machine. The Dykstraflex, a motion control system wired to a computer that repeated the exact same camera path again and again. Each pass captured one element: X-wings, TIEs, lasers, stars, and later they'd stack the footage into a seamless battle. The precision was breathtaking. An inch off, and the illusion collapsed. That invention didn't just make the trench run possible, it rewrote special effects history and earned ILM its first Oscar. Every swoop and roll you see came from a homemade robot arm, code, and caffeine. They didn't film ships, they became them. And while machines flew through models, the humans on set were tangled in something more personal. Fact 14. The secret romance hidden on set. Years later, Carrie Fisher revealed a secret. During the 1976 London shoot, she and Harrison Ford had a brief hush-hush affair. She was 19, her 33, and married then. On set, he was reserved. Off set, they slipped into a 3-month whirlwind she described in her 2016 memoir, The Princess Diarist. It wasn't public at the time, and most of the crew had no idea. Rewatch the snarky volleys between Han and Leia, and you can feel an extra charge. Part performance, part unspoken history. Fisher told it with candor and bite, owning her younger self without varnish. Fans argued, sighed, laughed. The chemistry suddenly needed no explanation. Real feelings braided through fantasy, and the banter crackled. And in another timeline entirely, Leia's face might have belonged to someone else. Fact 15. The princess who almost was Jodie Foster. Before Carrie Fisher locked in Princess Leia, another name hovered over the role: Jodie Foster. In interviews, Foster has said she was up for Leia, possibly even offered the part, but scheduling made it impossible. She was already booked solid as a teenage phenom, juggling studio commitments and projects stacking back-to-back after Taxi Driver. The timing just didn't line up. Imagine Leia with Foster's flinty intensity, a cooler, steelier vibe, less aristocratic bite, more streetwise spark. Star Wars would still have soared, but the energy between Han and Leia might have tilted in surprising ways. Fate chose Fisher, and her crackling wit became canon. Hollywood is built on near misses like this. One calendar page turns, and history rewrites itself. Speaking of history getting messy, the man inside Vader sparked his own storm. Fact 16. The Vader leak that sparked a feud. Inside the suit, David Prowse helped define Vader's menace, but backstage, he collided with the empire that made him. In late 70s interviews and convention chatter, Prowse was reported to have spilled major plot beats before The Empire Strikes Back. Whether by guess or leak remains debated. Lucasfilm's response was icy. Invitations dried up, promo uses shrank, and while castmates enjoyed official spotlights, Prowse found himself edged outside the celebration of a character he embodied. He felt wronged and said so. The studio guarded its secrets and moved on. It's a messy chapter. The human who gave Vader his stride became a ghost at his own party. Fandom remembers both truths, the icon and the rift, and fan debate wouldn't end there. One blaster scene would ignite arguments for decades. Fact 17. Han shot first, and then history changed. One bar, one blink, endless edits. In 1977, Han blasts Greedo under the table. Fast, ruthless, undeniably roguish. Years later, the special edition recut the beat, so Greedo fires first and misses, nudging Han toward defensive. Fans revolted. Subsequent releases kept tinkering. Timing tweaks, digital nudges, even a Disney Plus version where Greedo blurts "McClunky" right before the shot. Each revision tries to steer how we judge Han. Scoundrel with an edge, message or good guy pushed into a corner. But the persistence of the argument became the point. Viewers don't just watch Star Wars. They audit it, frame by frame, guarding a memory of how it felt. The scene is tiny, the echo gigantic. And if one moment can shift perception, imagine entire soundtracks changing between theaters the very same year. Fact 18. The three soundtracks of 1977. In 1977, you didn't hear just one Star Wars. You heard three. The premiere venues ran a 70mm 6-track mix with thunderous bass and extra channel separation. Most theaters got 35mm Dolby Stereo, a leaner, differently balanced version. Then there's the cult favorite, the 35mm mono mix, finished last, stuffed with alternate lines and sound effects, from shoutouts in firefights to extra PA chatter and tweaked creature voices. Depending on your ticket and town, jokes landed differently, blasters cracked sharper or softer, and background noise told a slightly new story. That's why fans swear they remember a line, others don't, because they really did. One film, multiple realities, all canon to someone's ears. And speaking of fickle tech, the desert had its own opinions, especially about a certain short, stubborn astromech. Fact 19. R2-D2 versus the desert. R2-D2 wasn't just stubborn by personality, the desert made him that way. Tunisia's heat and sand wrecked radio controls, jammed servos, and turned smooth rolls into sputtering zigzags. Miniature wheels sank, bearings clogged, and receivers lost signal at the worst moments. Operators would nudge from off-camera, then watch R2 veer like a shopping cart with a curse on it. That forced creative staging, tighter cuts, strategic wipes, and plenty of Kenny Baker inside the dome when reliability mattered. The quirks accidentally gave R2 charm, little hesitations, surprise spins, and grumpy beeps that felt alive. He wasn't a slick prop, he was a co-worker with moods. Out of frustration came personality, and out of limitation, laughs. And while the droids struggled, one veteran actor made the shrewdest deal in the galaxy. Fact 20. Alec Guinness and the smartest deal in the galaxy. Alec Guinness thought the script was fairy tale rubbish, but he read Obi-Wan with the gravity of a monk. Then he made the genius move. Instead of chasing a huge upfront fee, he negotiated back-end points, a slice of the film's profits and merchandising. A few days' work turned into a fortune as Star Wars exploded, proving belief at the contract table can rival belief in the Force. He still rolled his eyes at odd lines and endless fan mail, yet his calm warmth became the story's conscience. That blend, skepticism offset, serenity on it, anchors the myth. The lesson lands harder than any lightsaber duel. Art is craft, business is strategy, and legends are built by both. Which brings us back to 1977. One messy miracle, 20 strange truths, and a galaxy that never stopped expanding. Strip away the myth, and 1977 looks wonderfully human. Rain-soaked sets, improvised gadgets, bruised actors, and one risky yes that changed pop culture. These 20 oddities don't shrink Star Wars, they make it breathe. Because the miracle wasn't pixels or destiny, it was people, stubborn and inventive, building a galaxy from boards, paint, noise, and nerve. Every hum, every wobble, every lucky accident still invites us back. Doors open, ready to step through again, lights down, theme up, we're home tonight.